Good morning, guys. This is Alex from Board Game Co., and welcome to one of the busiest days we've had on Kickstarter in quite some time. Busiest single days, mind you, not necessarily a whole month. But today we have a bunch of Kickstarters dropping, and the first video I'm doing today is the first one that has dropped, which is Wolfenstein the board game. Now, Wolfenstein the board game is a Kickstarter put out by Archon Studio, and in today's video I'm going to do a quick overview of the actual game itself, as well as my opinion as to whether you should or shouldn't back it and why. There's going to be a bit of a personal opinion as to whether I'm backing it, as well as a general feedback on whether you should back it as well. There are different categories. Now, to go into that, let's start with the basic project. At its core, Wolfenstein 3D is a cooperative dungeon crawler set in the Wolfenstein universe, just like it says up here. You know, cooperative dungeon crawler set in Wolfenstein's universe. Now, the gameplay itself doesn't seem to break anything new at the moment. Now, that, don't get me wrong, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it definitely is a factor in backing. So what I mean by that is let's start with the basic gameplay. The basic gameplay involves taking a few actions. You have a few actions every turn. You're going to be going through this dungeon over here. Keep in mind, by the way, this plastic terrain is an extra add-on, so just be wary when you look at this picture. But you're going to go through the dungeon taking various actions. The actions will involve moving, rolling dice to attack, and things along those lines. Standard dungeon crawler things, no molds broken. And then as well as that, there is a small stealth aspect to the game, similar to Reichbusters perhaps. Doesn't seem that similar to V Commando. Seems a little bit more similar to Reichbusters, but not the exact same. Now, don't get me wrong, this is the first but not the last comparison we're going to have to Reichbusters here, which just makes sense when we're doing with this, you know, World War II Weird Wars kind of situation here in a miniatures-based board game with an attacking and a stealth element. Now, in the game itself, so like I said, there's a stealth element. Every time you kill guards or every time you have too many heroes on a tile, it'll trigger different stealth mechanics. So it's basically your standard dungeon crawler of move through, kill stuff, find equipment, level up characters, do all that stuff. I actually don't think you level up characters, but you have character abilities, and then you collect different equipment that you'll be going through the game to try to, you know, complete your objectives while slaughtering as many bad guys as you possibly can. Standard dungeon crawler stuff. Totally up my alley, exactly the kind of things I enjoy playing. So far, kind of a good thing. At the same time, it doesn't really do anything new. Now, any game in this genre, they get harder and harder pressed to do things that are new, because every time someone does something new, that's one less thing that you can do. And the problem with innovation is innovation comes with risk. Innovation comes with, let's take Dungeonology. Dungeonology was a very interesting game that unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be like nobody seems to be talking about it since the Kickstarter came out. Sometimes innovation comes at the cost of not having a good end product because it's something new, it's something experimental. The flip side is old and reliable is great, but it's harder to incentivize people to spend a ton of money on the same thing just reskinned. Now, in this case, this project doesn't, like I said, it doesn't look like it does anything new in particular, but that may or may not be a bad thing depending on what you're interested in. Now, let's cover the pledge levels, and then I'll get to my own decision as to why I'm doing things, and then we can get into your decision as to what I think you should potentially do, depending on what you care about. The words, what I think you should do, just mean depending on your concerns. You should do what you want to do. This is just here to add opinions. Now, from there, we have the basic $1 pledge level. This gives you access to the pledge manager, plain and simple. Next up, we have a $120 pledge level, which gives you the base game and 2 expansions, as well as all unlocked stretch goals. At $120, this seems to be a solid value. I don't yet know if they're going to have additional add-ons of buys or whatnot, but this is a standard pledge level, but it comes with the expansions, 2 expansions included. The base game at retail will probably end up being somewhere in the $70 to $80 range. You're getting 2 expansions plus stretch goals. Not a bad value, at least when comparing and contrasting to what the retail pledge will be, not necessarily the value of the product itself. So in terms of the retail pledge to Kickstarter value, it's likely a good buy. We won't know for sure until we see it at retail, but it's likely a decent buy in that sense. And then the third pledge level is the $229 pledge level, which is effectively another $109 in order to get the Wolfenstein 3D plastic terrain extras. That's all it comes with extra, meaning I'm not sure if I misread. I tried looking at this 3 times to make sure I was reading this correctly, but all you're getting is an additional, let me scroll down to it over here, you're getting an additional, here, let's do this faster, there we go, okay, you're getting all these walls over here. Now, there's a decent amount. There's a 73 parts, 49 walls, 24 floors, but you're getting that for $109. So if that's something you value, go ahead. For me, I would be wary about getting this unless you really like it. And I'll tell you there's two reasons. Not when I say this, I'm first referring to the 3D terrain kit. This pledge level does not seem like a great buy because what you're getting is you're getting a bunch of wall pieces, but the actual board setup doesn't look significantly better, in my opinion, but more importantly, the cost is $109 for all of that. That's a few board games right there. And additionally, you're adding to your setup time and your tear down time fairly significantly. At least it looks like it, meaning you're going to have a whole nother box to deal with. It may be similar. The colors of the floors are all the same. They have different patterns, but the colors are all the same. Contrast that look. Let me see if I can find a look of the actual board by its own. So contrast that with something that looks like this, where it's more of a colorful element with just these doors. I think you're paying a decent amount of money and adding to your setup and tear down time. So to me, if I had that expansion for free, I would be hesitant to use it because of how much it adds. I like doors like this. I like the walls you see in Arena of the Contest, but a full-on setup for each scenario makes this game harder to get to the table, and that is the biggest crime against any game. The how hard a game is to get to the table, there's a huge correlation between that and how often a game will get played. So I would be very cautious about getting that expansion itself. Now, for the opinion parts, let's start with my own opinion. I will not be backing this game for a variety of reasons, which I'll get into. Some of them are personal, some of them may apply to more of you. Now, in terms of why I'm not backing this game, there's a few reasons. Number one, the Wolfenstein theme doesn't do anything for me. I'm not against it. It doesn't bother me. But whenever you have a game that has a thematic tie-in, a Star Wars, a Wolfenstein, Lord of the Rings, whatever it may be, inherently you're going to be pulling in some people who just are interested in the theme, and they may get interested in the game as well. I am 100% not in that audience for Wolfenstein. To me, Wolfenstein is just, it's Germany, World War II, Nazis, doesn't do anything specific for me. The Reichbusters theme is the same, and I just got Reichbusters, so I already have that game. It's not a bad theme, don't get me wrong, but the fact that it's Wolfenstein doesn't do a thing for me, unfortunately. So that's one. I say that's not really a reason why I'm not backing it, so much a reason why I'm not going to. It's not a reason to back rather than a reason not to back. Secondly, from there, the miniatures don't appeal to me. Offhand, and don't get me wrong, I'd rather a good game with bad miniatures, but especially when you're looking at these Kickstarters, one of those things that really calls me in is that aspect of, ooh, cool minis, and then I try to justify it from there. So I'm not trying to justify anything here, because the miniatures, the art quality simply doesn't appeal to me. These figures, they look fine, there's nothing wrong with them, but just on a personal note, on a personal level, none of these really do it for me. It kind of just feels like a worse version of Reichbusters in terms of the miniatures. Meaning, I'd be inclined to use my Reichbusters minis in place of this, even if I got the game, which takes away a lot of the value. There are some exceptions. There are some miniatures that I like more than others, but I would say the biggest crime is the ones that I do like. The exceptions are mostly in the bad guys and the villains. In terms of the heroes, I don't like a single one of these miniatures or any of the expansion miniatures that I saw. I don't like the poses. I don't like the looks. It's got this weird half real, half cartoon style that feels a little uncanny valley to me. It feels, if you know, the uncanny valley is this term for when things look kind of real but not real enough, or something looks off about something. These all look off to me. I don't know why, I can't really explain it, but something about them, they look like they all belong on the Polar Express. They have that slightly uncanny valley look to them. So that on a personal level, I'm not being pulled in by the miniatures at all, and the few that I do like are in the bad guys, which is less fun because I'm not playing as the bad guys. From there, from what I can see, and this is where I couldn't find anything definitive on this, but it seems, let me see if I can find it here. There was a segment, I'm sorry for all the scrolling. Yeah, over here, model assembly, okay? it seems like it seems like the miniatures in this game have to be assembled by yourself. I'm not 100% sure. They showed miniatures on sprues, and they showed this model assembly example. I couldn't find anything in the FAQ. I couldn't find anything for certain about whether the miniatures are assembled. But if the miniatures are assembled, that's a hard no for me. For me to get a game that requires miniature assembly, which is a process that I have no interest in and adds a whole nother element of until when I can get a game to the table, I have to know that game is good. It would take a lot for me to jump into that. One of the many reasons I haven't tried Kingdom Death Monster is because of the miniature assembly. I'll wait. I'll get the game used when someone else has assembled it. I'll get the game used when I know more about whether the game is actually good, as opposed to whether I just hope it's good. Miniature assembly is a huge turnoff for me, and I don't know if it is for you, but look carefully into this game. And again, I'm not saying for certain you have to assemble it. I tried finding information. I couldn't find anything for certain. But if you look at the Kickstarter reviews, it looks like some of the, like when the King of Average got his, it looked like he definitely had miniatures on sprues that had to be assembled. Over here, it's showing you model assembly, which most Kickstarters that come with pre-assembled miniatures don't do that. And it showed pictures of models on sprues. So I'm not certain, but the signs seem to point towards miniature assembly. And that is a hard no for me. It would take a lot for me. Like if CMON came out, if Command Games came out with a miniature assembly required game, it's possible that I would back it because I like Command Games a lot, but it's hard to know. So those are the two slightly. Oh, and the third reason is the gameplay. Like I said already, the gameplay nothing about the gameplay is pulling me in. It doesn't mean it'll be bad. Keep in mind, Terraforming Mars, the number 3 game of all time at the moment, doesn't do a single thing that's really new, but it just simply combines elements in a really incredibly well done way, from the way the cards are drafted, the area control, the way the cards interact. Nothing, I don't want to say nothing, but I don't think anything in that game is actually new, but sometimes combining things that are well loved in a way that works well is enough. The problem with that is that I don't know if that's the case here until the game comes out. I don't know if that's the case until people are talking about how amazing the game is and how they're so excited to buy it, and the value of the Kickstarter is twice as high now because it's so whatever. I don't know. Nothing about the game itself is calling to me. In the typical dungeon crawler, looks great. Nothing wrong with it, but I already have games like this, and this theme isn't pulling me in anything specifically. The stealth element, I'd rather Reichbusters, V Commandos, or Assassin's Creed. I'll caveat that. I know I like V Commandos. Reichbusters, I hope I like. I'll let you know when I actually play it. But Reichbusters looks, from a pure looking standpoint, Reichbusters looks more appealing. The stealth element to it. This kind of has a dungeon crawler with a stealth element, but nothing that really calls me. In terms of more general reasons as to whether I think it's a good buy, whether you should back it or whatnot, that's where it gets a little trickier. Now, when I say should you back it, that what I just mean is if you care about these factors. If you don't care about these factors, go ahead, join the currently 684 backers and jump right on it. There's no reason not to. Games are all about having fun. Go ahead and have fun. Ignore my opinion if I'm ruining your fun. But going back to what's going on here, so first of all, this game is coming from Archon Studio. That is a pro and a con. It's a pro in the sense that Archon Studio is an established company that has delivered games. That is a good thing. Generally, off the bat, it's a good thing. It's a con in the sense that Archon Studio has a terrible track record of producing any components except miniatures, but they've completely changed that on both counts. Now, what I mean by that is, while they have a track record of producing amazing miniatures, they're changing that in this game. The way they produce their miniatures, they're not doing that. The way they did, the way they did Vanguard of War, or I can't remember the other title. The way they've done their previous games, Archon X, the way they've done their previous games, they are doing a different miniature production style here. It's not single cast molding, which means any opinions you have of how awesome the miniatures are, to a certain extent, should be disregarded. And sadly, from the videos I've seen of the review copies that have been sent out, I think, unfortunately, their miniatures do not look as good as not just the design, but just the sheer miniature quality does not seem to be up to their usual standard. So take that into account. The flip side is I also know that they've changed the production quality of their cards, their tokens, and whatnot. So what you're likely seeing here, and I say likely because we won't know until we see final production copies, but what you're likely seeing here is an improvement over their typical components, but possibly a lack of improvement, a decrease in quality of their miniatures. So everything we know about how well they've done from a production quality is out the window. From a communication and timeline standpoint, unfortunately, they do not have a good track record there either. Now, I have generally give people a lot of passes about communication as long as the end product is amazing, but that is the third flag. Now, what I mean by that is going back to the communication. Take a company like Command Games, who I love Command Games. Their communication post-campaign tends to suck. Their delays are kind of good and bad. And I mean by that is they're bad because there are delays, but it's good because it's kind of standard. When you back a Command game, you know offhand that you're usually talking about an extra 2 to 4 month delay on average. Possibly more with everything going on with COVID-19, but in general, they're consistent with that. They have a small delay, but nothing crazy, nothing whatever. Archon Studios has had longer delays with worse communication, but their end product doesn't even have the redeeming quality of being as good, at least historically speaking. Vanguard of War is generally considered to be an okay game. Their other Archon X, their opinions kind of seem fairly lacking in Archon X. They seem to be even more critical. The third one they have, the rip-off game from, what's it called? From Rum and Bones. I can't remember the title. I'm blanking and I'm sorry. But the third one, that one's generally considered to be an inferior version of Rum and Bones. So all their games seem to be generally accepted as okay, but nothing special. So are we willing to back? Well, I'm certainly not, but are you willing to back Wolfenstein with the anticipation that this is the game that they're going to do that is better? This is the game that they're going to make that is actually well accepted. They so far have at least 3 okay-ish mediocre games under their belt. Why are you going to back the 4th one, assuming that this time round it's a better game? Have you seen any reviews from any of the Kickstarter creators that they've put in terms of the videos? Have you seen anything to make you believe from any of those reviewers that the game is actually better? Because so far, and I haven't watched all of them, I've watched a few of them, I have not watched all, but so far I haven't. So far I've seen, how does this game play? Look at these components. The King of Average as well, by the way, and this might change if he puts out a video, but he got a prototype copy. I don't see his name here. I don't see anything about, where his review of the game is, and that's a giant red flag of the game itself. We're not seeing, it's a company that has a track record of putting out okay games, as well as a lack of anyone saying this game is actually good. That is a giant red flag to me, and I believe it should be a giant red flag to you. And finally, as far as the value, as far as whether this game will have a return on your investment, that $229 pledge level, I mean, so first of all, it's interesting to see already, this is early, but 98 backers are backing at this level and 66 at this, which means there's a decent amount of people backing at the higher terrain level pledge. I think it's a terrible buy if you value your setup time and that additional $100 for what looks maybe slightly better, but again, opinions, just opinions here. So yeah, it's already interesting to see that breakdown. But going back to, are you going to see your money back here? If past Archon Studio projects are anything to go by, here's how it's going to break out. If you back this game, and if you get it to the table right when you play it, and then you turn around and sell it, you will almost certainly see a full return on your investment, including the cost, including the shipping cost. You'll be able to sell it at a slight profit, if not slightly higher. That's not a guarantee, don't get me wrong, but past Archon Studio games, people like the new, people like the shiny, people want in on those things they missed. Between when the pledge manager closes and between when the people can get this game, there'll be a decent gap of people building up that, I want Wolfenstein, I missed the Kickstarter, I want in. So if you get your game to the table in that first 2 weeks, in the first 3 weeks, and you turn around and flip it, there will almost certainly be someone who wants this game. I mean, the actual cost compared to the components is not bad. It's just a question of whether the game is good or not. And the components, the game and the components are good. So there will likely be an opportunity in that first 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks, maybe more, to flip this game at your cost or a slight value, regardless of the reviews that start coming in. It usually is a bit of a lag between when a game hits backers' collections and when the reviews start pouring in, and there will be a lot of people who missed the Kickstarter who will want it. So if you do want to get this game, if you do want to ignore everything I said, I believe you should, if you value your money but you also want the game and you want to take that risk, then I recommend backing the game, playing in the first 2 weeks as soon as you possibly can, shows up on your door, start reading that rulebook, play it as soon as possible, And then if you like it, keep playing it. Good, why not? If you don't like it, turn around and sell it as fast as possible to get your money back, because there will be a short window to do that if this game is not good. If the reviews come in as the game is mediocre, if people start giving reviews left, right, and center that the game is okay but not great, or worse than that, if the game is just straight up bad, then you will not have a ton of time to flip this and get your money back. Because currently, backers of Vanguard of War or any other Archon games, currently those games tend to sell for closer to half their value. Maybe 2/3 or 75%, but like none of those games are getting their full value back, because at the end of the day, people want a good game more than they want pretty shiny minis. Pretty shiny minis gets people to back, but once the game hits the market, good games are what get people to buy those games. So there you have it. That's my opinion. Hopefully that was interesting, or hopefully I give you food for thought as to why you might want to back it, you should back it, shouldn't back it, or any of that stuff. I'll make one more note, but in terms of those miniatures that have to be assembled, keep in mind that Kingdom Death Monster, one of the most popular miniature games of all time, is a game that has assembled miniatures. So that one's more of a personal turnoff. I will not assemble miniatures for a game unless the game is amazing. But I don't know if that's necessarily a turn-off in terms of the overall value, in terms of whether other people will jump in on this. And that's only if it is pre-assembled miniatures. I couldn't find anything certain on that. Maybe you guys know. Let me know in the comments down below. Anyways, that's my opinion. Those are my 2 cents. Let me know if you're backing this game and why. What's going on? What's your opinion? What are your thoughts? I'm always interested in hearing from you guys. Other than that, this is Alex from Board Game Co. There'll be a few more videos from all the Kickstarters coming out in the next few days. You can subscribe down below if you like this kind of stuff. You can ring the bell for notifications, like, comment, all that good stuff. And you can support the channel by heading on over to BoardGameCo.com. Buy, sell, or trade games with us. Helps support the channel, keeps this stuff going. And until next time, have a good one and stay safe.